4 o'clock at the Mary Pat Flynn Conference Center. And it is the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates meeting. Clerk Owen, would you do the honors of?
All right, Madam Speaker. Pursuant to the Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates will be conducted both in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Members of the public may watch the meeting through live real-time broadcast at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County. Public participation guide and meeting documents are available in advance at www.capecod.gov. County of Barnstable does not discriminate in the administration of its programs or activities on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or other category protected by state and federal anti-discrimination laws and regulations. Reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities are available upon request. For more information or to file a complaint, please contact Justina Marchak, Barnstable County ADA Non-Discrimination Coordinator at jmarczak@capecod.gov. Call 508-375-6646 or visit www.capecod.gov. Members of the public may also attend the meeting remotely through Microsoft Teams, and all of that information is available on the website at www.capecod.gov.
Our country in the armed forces. Stand for a pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic which stands. Justice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
All right, Delegate Frederickson,
Here.
Delegate Friesel,
Here.
Delegate Fuller,
Here.
Delegate Gallagher,
Here.
Deputy Speaker Gasson,
Here.
Delegate Green, Delegate Harder, Delegate Killian,
Here.
Delegate King, Delegate O'Malley,
Here.
Dean Omen,
Here.
Delegate Sampson,
Here.
Delegate Ty,
Here.
Speaker Warner,
Here.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Here.
Madam Speaker, that's 13 delegates representing 91.25% of the county's population.
And we have an approval for the journals and minutes.
Move with
The Assembly of Delegates regular meeting of December 17th.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Speaker, go ahead.
All right, Madam Speaker, Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Friesel.
Yes.
Delegate Fuller.
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Present.
Deputy Speaker Gasson.
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes.
Delegate Harder. Delegate Killian.
Abstain.
Delegate King. Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson.
Yes.
Delegate Ty.
Yes.
Speaker Warner.
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that's 11, representing 79.89% voting in the affirmative.
Do we announce this? Yep. Okay, going to adopt the order of business, please. Roll call?
Motion is second.
So moved. Second.
All right, Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Friesel.
Yes.
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gasson,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder, Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Delegate Warner,
Yes.
or Speaker Warner, Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
That's 13 representing 91.25% of the county's population.
To communications from members of the public and officials. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to, let's see, communications from regional commissioners, administrator, and directors. Michael Dutton, administrator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a limited number of items. I think one of the attributes of a good government manager is you know when to elaborate and when not to elaborate. So I will give you some of the items that, as part of sort of a yearly recap, some of the items that we are identifying as areas of work for next year or for the upcoming calendar year. One of the unique things about our charter is that it asks for an update or a recap of the prior year on a calendar year basis, and we operate on a fiscal year basis. So it's a little bit confusing. Regardless, I figured I would best use this time by letting you know what we are looking at as your management team for the upcoming year. One is the Upper Cape Composting Initiative, and I think you've heard from Carrie Parcell in the past on that initiative. So we're looking at locating a composting facility on Joint Base Cape Cod. The base is on board with that. We've identified a piece of property that's our priority property, and then a second piece of property if that piece doesn't work out. So we've met with the 4 Upper Cape towns as well as the base, and we are looking at moving that project forward in 2026. Our goals is to get we have 2 major goals. One is to get an agreement formulated amongst the participants, the 4 towns and the base, and make sure that we can get that piece of property secured and make sure we can get that piece of property permitted for the use that we intend. And then once that is done, we anticipate that will take a good part of the year, probably more than that, probably about a 2-year period in order to accomplish that. After that, we will look to either finance the construction of a compost facility. We don't intend to finance that with anything other than grants at this point. If we are not successful in seeking grants for that project, we will go out to bid to seek a private operator to build and then run that facility. So that's upcoming. You'll hear more about that throughout the year. Second item for the upcoming year deals with our county offices. I think, as you know, and as Paul Rosala has explained, we are renovating the exterior of the Superior Court building, where administration and finance offices are. We've decided some months ago that the disruption to the outside would preclude the use of the inside during the period of construction. So we are looking to relocate on a temporary basis both the finance department and my department into other areas. So you've seen a request for funding to improve the basement, the lower level, the garden level of the Registry of Deeds building, and that is going to be the location for finance department on a short-term basis. It will also be the location for the permanent location for IT, as IT has to move out of their offices over behind us here in the Innovation Building. So we will go ahead and we'll do that. The work on the exterior of that building projected to take anywhere between 8 to 10 months. And so during that time, we'll have a temporary location. Once that building is finished, we're still formulating a plan on who gets to move, not gets to, but who moves back into that building. And we're, as part of that discussion, we're trying to figure out how best we can make sure there are good synergies within the finance department. Our objective is to try to get all the finance department back into one location. And they're mostly there now, but we do want to a couple of the staff that are not currently in that building. So those discussions are ongoing. We obviously want to make sure that's an important historic structure to the village of Barnstable. It's an important historic structure to the Cape. So we want to make sure that the voters and the residents of Barnstable Village know exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to happen with that building. And as soon as that bid is released and we get responses and we select a contractor, then we will have we do have a communication plan to make sure that we let people know exactly what our plan is with that building and how it's going to proceed. And then finally, just in terms of county offices, we are going to turn more with a more focused attention to the facilities master plan. The facilities master plan is essentially completed. However, we need to narrow down the options available and bring that to both the commissioners and to the assembly and seek some direction as we move forward, doing the financial planning that we'll need to do in order to adopt one of the 5 or 6 different options in the facilities master plan. So that's on our agenda too. I think one of our biggest and most challenging pieces of work in the upcoming year will be engaging the state in hopefully renegotiating the leases or the lease that we have for our court buildings. This has been obviously a long time issue for the county, and it's been a long time issue for all the counties that own court properties within the state. There aren't too many of us, but we find that the lease that the state pays is woefully below market, and you've heard from Carol and heard from me the issues with capital improvements and the challenge that presents to us, both a challenge both in terms of planning and in terms of financing. So those are challenges that we'll begin to tackle. Ultimately, a lot of those solutions will come down to political solutions. Whatever we do will require an act of the legislature. So I'm just giving you a little fair warning for those of you that have contacts on Beacon Hill. We may be trying to leverage your help in trying to get us slightly fairer lease arrangement for the courthouses. We intend to pour a lot of attention or continue to pour a lot of attention into our dredge business. I know most of the towns, if all but one town here, benefits from our dredge program. We want to make sure that dredge program is long-term sustainable and has a source of funding. We have mentioned, I think, over the last several months that our understanding is that we may be losing, or the towns may be losing their dredge grant program, which has funded a lot of the Cape's dredging over the past 20, 30 years. So that particular piece of the dredge issue, the dredge department and issue is somewhat political. So we've advocated, and I know this assembly has also advocated for making sure that we keep that funding into FY27, and we've requested the governor to include that funding in her budget. So we've asked the towns, harbor masters, town managers to also weigh in, and they have, which is good news. So I'm hoping that the governor's office has heard that message loud and clear. But we'll continue to advocate for that funding. The other thing we want to make sure we do is adopt recommendations in the several studies that we've done. Some of them, those recommendations are listed as different options for us. We have to decide what option is best for the Cape, and then reconfigure that department, the dredge department, in a way that is more responsive to the towns and can continue to do the work they do, but in a more sustainable manner. So ultimately, what that involves is developing a long-term business plan for the dredge, We've got some gaps in the dredge department, one being just a location. We've operated that department out of the end of an extension cord in the back of a DPW building in Dennis for ever. So anyway, those are I'm a little lighthearted about it, but those are the liabilities. Some of the liabilities that around the dredge work that we do need to be mitigated, and having an actual location for the functions that the onshore functions that they do is really critical to mitigate some of the risks. Let's see. Obviously, I mentioned the Massachusetts Dredge Grant. We also want to make sure that we're leveraging every type of funding that we possibly can. There are federal grants available for dredge work, and we want to make sure that the Cape can avail itself of that. Traditionally, we have not. Where we've very limited circumstances have the towns been able to avail themselves of federal funding. So there is federal funding, and if we can do sort of more regional permitting or encourage the towns to do more regional permitting of dredge projects, then it puts us up in a level where we may have a better opportunity to secure federal funding for our dredge work. So that's the dredge. For finance, we're going to continue to refine some of the policies that we currently have. I think Carol and her team have done a great job of adopting financial policies, and we're going to continue that work throughout 2026. General government, when I started, there was a discussion had begun prior to my arrival about potentially rearranging some of the departments and some of the work that goes on in those departments into different places so that there's more synergy within a particular department. So I asked that we put that conversation on hold so that I could get my feet wet, I could get an idea of what we do. And so after over a year, I think I sort of know what we do, although I learn something new every day, and today included. But we want to make sure that we're working as efficiently as possible, and obviously, efficiency allows us to do more and for less money, and so that's incumbent on us. So now that I've gotten my feet wet, I think we're in a place where we're going to start to talk about shifting some divisions among departments and making sure that we can do things as efficiently as possible. And I'll just give you an example. It's a small example, but so historically, every department in the county has budgeted their own IT line item for a laptop replacement, software purchases, what have you. That's incredibly inefficient and takes the experts right out of the picture. So we want to make sure that those monies are consolidated into the IT department so that IT can be responsive to all their internal customers in a way that they haven't been before. So that's just a tiny little example, but that's the way we're kind of looking at some of these things. And I should add, some of that one in particular probably will be reflected in the budget that you see for FY27. So I'll get to that in a minute. Did I say I was going to be brief? And then lastly, we need to plan internally for a potential charter review. And when I say internally, I want to make sure that all of our departments understand how that process works, what's involved. I think there are a lot of people internally that are nervous about that, and there's a lot of stuff floating around. Probably inaccuracies floating around that certainly I can help to allay. So I want to make sure that internally everybody is aware of what that process is, how it works, the timeline, and make sure that nobody nobody's fearful of a look at our charter. So that is those are the kind of the areas that we'll be looking at over the next year. As well as many others, obviously, but those are the kind of my main focus. And then finally, I just mentioned the budget. I just want to give you a very quick budget update for FY '27. We are in the process of doing a lot of internal review of each department's budget. I don't see anything that should worry the assembly or the commissioners for that matter. It's no secret that the cost of everything is going up. I think cost of healthcare in particular, we don't know what our healthcare costs are going to be for FY '27. We won't know that until into February sometime. We are being prudent and carrying a pretty large escalation percentage there. But we will see what that one is. But aside from that, everything seems to be going up. The utilities, electricity, gas, oil, and healthcare certainly. So that's sort of where we are and what we're looking forward to getting into over the next year. And then I thought I would defer the past year to Sonia as she presents the annual report. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Yes, sir.
Happy New Year, Ms. Dutton.
Well, thank you. I should have said that in the beginning.
I have two subjects, one of them pretty quick. On the composting facility for the Upper Cape, you say you're working out agreements with the towns. Do you anticipate essentially for those 4 towns to enter into a commitment to collect and send to the site their composting? Is that what the idea is?
That's the ultimate objective, yes, is to get the towns to commit to carving out food waste and sending it to the new facility. What we have right in front of us for the next 2 years is really a commitment from the towns to fund, along with the county, to fund the next steps, fund the securing the property, which really, if we play our cards right, shouldn't be a major expense at all. And then fund the permitting process that we have to go through with the state in order to fund a composting facility.
And do you have a business model that will demonstrate to the towns that it will be less expensive for them to use this site than presumably commercial haulers they're using right now?
Absolutely.
That's been worked through?
Yep, and I can share that I can share that study with the assembly, certainly.
Appreciate that.
But yes, the short answer is yes. That's why the towns are very interested in doing this. The other thing that is important to note is that the Department of Environmental Protection, the State Department of Environmental Protection, has formulated some food waste bans. So right now, there are certain users of the waste stream that are not allowed to put food in. Obviously, all of us aren't affected by that yet. But we anticipate that in the early 2030s, there will be a ban on food waste residentially. So we are sort of preparing for that.
So I hope we're doing advanced thinking about the Mid Cape and the Lower Outer Cape, as we might need a couple more sites.
Spoken as an Outer Cape person.
Right. Well,
that's actually a great segue into what the study showed us. We had asked, we are treating this Joint Base Cape Cod facility as essentially a beta. We're going to see if this works, and we know it will, but we're going to see if this works. If there's a huge demand, and I anticipate there will be for the other Cape towns to get into it. Then the question is, can we find another site that's appropriate for this kind of facility anywhere else on the Cape? The beauty of Joint Base Cape Cod is that there's a lot of open space that probably doesn't exist in too many parts of the Cape. But the plan was, this is sort of the Upper Cape version, and then I think the feasibility study sort of encouraged us to think about sort of a Mid Cape or Lower Cape facility. But knowing the constraints, it wouldn't surprise me if this facility ultimately becomes the resource for most of the Cape.
Well, I'm real supportive of that. So, the second question, could you be specific about currently what you're planning on the percentage increase on healthcare insurance. What are you planning on?
So we have been told that it's going to be at least 10%. We're planning on 15. And worst case scenario, what I have sensed through the municipal health group is it could be a 25% increase.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's not, that's not just us, that's everybody. Very well. Yeah.
Deputy Speaker Dan Gessen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Administrator Dutton, for the overview. I also just wanted to mention to you and get your thoughts on the feasibility of continuing the conversation around housing that we started at the beginning of this year. I know you have worked with the Housing Working Group, which is a really fantastic way to make sure we can find ways for towns to work together in order to find housing solutions. The Assembly is obviously taking on some of those recommendations right now, but I would definitely be excited to see that working group as well as future recommendations continue to come out of your side and through that working group. We haven't solved the housing crisis yet, so it would be nice to continue hearing about new things that we could do to continue making it easier on Cape Cod.
Nope, and I think, I did not mention housing specifically because in my mind, housing is sort of one of those permanent challenges that we face. And a lot of what I mentioned was sort of, some of the one-offs that we're going to tackle over the next year. But I think housing will consistently be a challenge. And I think the county currently has the Home Consortium. We've got the Housing Working Group. There are a number of different housing sort of committees that a lot of that membership sort of overlaps. So one of the things I'd like to look at over the next year is maybe reconfiguring at least the county's work on housing and create a more formalized committee that might tackle some of the specific issues that we face. So, but that's a point well taken. So I didn't mean to short housing at all. That's just sort of it's always going to be there kind of issue.
Dean Omen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will be brief. Did the commissioners reorganize and what has taken place, number one? And number two, can you tell me, Sonia sent out a notice about a new hire in the health department. So can you tell me about both of those things?
Sure. Yes, the commissioners reorganized. Their chair is Mark Forrest and the vice chair is Ron. Ron's the vice chair. And we'll just keep plugging away on that front. And I think I'm not sure who Sonia's message was about. Was it the deputy health director?
Yes.
Yes. And oh boy, Sonia's going to have to help me with the name.
Oh, well, I actually was a social media post put out by the health department.
Okay.
Yeah. So hold on one second. His name is Paul Kolstad. And I guess he goes by Randy.
Excellent. No, thank you, Sonia. And he has a wealth of experience. He's worked for USAID, and I talked to him this morning. Been in 6 or 7 or 8 different countries during his career. Speaks half dozen different languages, which is all great. Great stuff, not specifically great for health, but he will be a great addition to the health department. And I'm excited when we present budgets, I'll explain a little bit about some of the revisions within health that I think that are going to be critically important both to the Cape and also critically important to getting our health department not certified, but, certified, for lack of a better word.
Thank you. I will look forward to that explanation too.
Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for your update today, Administrator Dutton. I did have a question about perhaps clarifying the statement you made about charter review. It was that should the commissioners petition, shall we say, is voted on by the voters in Barnstable County, which would cost a lot of money to implement and a lot of money within the departments to actionalize, I guess is the word. Is that what you were talking about?
Not so much that. I don't know that there'll be a financial impact right away to any of our departments, just in terms of charter review. But I do think just sort of emotionally, there's a lot of, or practically, there are a lot of questions among staff. What does this mean? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to, what's going to happen? So I think being able to explain to staff, being able to communicate with staff directly, each step of the way is important, but I also think being upfront and out front on exactly what the timeline is, because the timeline is, for the most part, set out by law. So being able to just basically explain the process, that's really it. I just want to be able to put people at ease about that process, staff at ease.
Oh, so in other words, because I'm not put at ease by the commissioner's plan to do this, because it will cost the county a lot of money. And I'm not sure the voters really understand, but that's the direction you were going in.
Right. But what happens and how it, those are all political questions, and that's
I
not my
understand.
department,
I
thankfully.
understand. But thank you for
Yep.
clarifying.
Delegate Killian?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, Mr. Dutton.
Good
Nice to see
afternoon.
you. On the leases you brought up, if you could bring a little more detail to that. You mentioned that they were below market. And is that based on comparable commercial square footage, or is it just a matter of what it's costing us to maintain these buildings? I imagine it's been a number of years since there's been an increase in the lease amount. And I'm like most commercial spaces, it happens every year, like when the calendar changes.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering how far we are behind and what sort of percentage you would anticipate or would like to see in order to catch up and be able to maintain these buildings properly.
That's a great question, and we're actually right in the process of trying to develop exactly what our ask is going to be. But I can tell you how's best to explain this. Right now, the state compensates us for capital improvements. So, even though it's an awkward process, we spend the money to replace boilers in the Superior Court, for example, which is what we have to do over the next few weeks. So if we expend $250,000, we have to expend that this fiscal year. We submit that for reimbursement. Hopefully we'll get that in FY27. We'll get reimbursed for that, we hope. There's no guarantee, but the courts have been good about that. Aside from that, we get about $1 a square foot per year. So if you're in the commercial real estate business, you would jump at the chance to rent something for $1 a square foot per year. So that falls way below, DCAM's standard, published list of rental revenue or rental expense. So we want to get, we're not going to get rich off of leasing the court buildings. We're asking for enough to be able to maintain the buildings, make, minor upgrades here and there, and make sure that it's not costing us money. Because right now you can argue that it's costing us money to lease the court buildings.
So the reimbursements that we get, are they typically just flat dollar for dollar, or is there a margin that we collect for doing the work and obviously the administrative costs and involved in billing it out?
We don't necessarily get the administrative expense of billing it out. We get, depends on the percentage use of the building. So for instance, the 2 boilers that we've got to replace in the Superior Court heat the entire building. The courts use 75% of that floor space. So they will reimburse us 75% of the $250,000, whatever the case may be.
Okay, and just one more question, if I may, about the dredge. You've mentioned, and I think I read this earlier, where the state is obviously cutting back on funding. Is that part of some other initiative, or is it more of the broader scope that the governor's office is doing, reducing just aid to local municipalities to encourage them to raise their own taxes? Is it pretty much that's the case?
I'm not quite sure yet. And that's a great question that's right on point. We're not really sure. The state we understand, is in the process. If anybody is familiar with MassWorks at the town level and city level, MassWorks is sort of a one-stop shop for capital improvements for, DPW projects, roads, sidewalks, park improvements, so forth. So we're hearing, I'll say no more than that, we're hearing that, the governor is putting together a proposal to create something similar for sort of more environmental, on the environmental side, so that it makes it much easier for cities and towns to apply for grant funding. So you got sort of the MassWorks on the bricks and mortar kind of side. And then on the environmental side, you would have something similar, an easier portal to use, and an easier grant process. So we're not sure that that's actually going to happen. It would be great if it did, but we're not sure that that's going to happen. We're also not sure that the funding, the dredge funding, would make it into that, into that program. So, we're I guess, to answer your question, we're really not sure yet.
All right, thank you very much.
Delegate Friesel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A couple of quick questions. First, I guess the way you describe that lease, it's not like a classic net lease then.
Oh, no.
Really amazing.
No, and it's, one of the remarkable things about this lease, I think it was negotiated in 1989. There have been a couple of adjustments over the years, but it's self-renewing, and that self-renewing leases aren't authorized in Massachusetts, with the exception of the court leases that the counties have. So there's a specific general law that carves out those leases specifically. So
Patently unfair, just amazing. So the other question, a couple of quick questions. Number one, is that deputy health position something already in the, okay, so that's
Yes.
not a new position? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
And the last question, when do you anticipate you will have the operating budget ready to deliver to the assembly?
I will keep you updated, obviously, every time I come up here. Just, if there's something I know that's going to be an issue or a radical change to what we have in FY26. But I would anticipate, I believe we're required to deliver it by the second meeting in February. Obviously, we'll do that. If we can deliver that earlier, we'll do it earlier. It'll be in February.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Administrator Dutton. It's very informative. Next, we'll hear from Sonia Sheasley, the Communications Manager, who is going to do a presentation on the fiscal year 2025 annual report.
Yes, good
Sonia?
afternoon, Madam Speaker and members of the Assembly. For the record, Sonia Sheasley, Communications Manager for Barnstable County. I'm happy to be here today to present our fiscal year 2025 annual report, which is now available to the public and located on our website, capecod.gov. But as with previous years, this annual report is a single accessible digital report. We no longer print it, but it's printed on demand, and it shows how the county serves our region, the breadth of county services, and the county's evolving role in our region, guided by the direction and the financial oversight of the commissioners in the Assembly. I would like today to start with to show you the cover. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you can see that. So the image that we featured this year is is Chatham Lighthouse at Stage Harbor, and it's an iconic landmark on the Cape. And this was taken by Paul Rusala, our county's assets and infrastructure manager, who's also a talented photographer. And we featured several of his photographs throughout the report this year. But a little overview about the report itself. It marks the arrival of County Administrator Michael Dutton, who began his role in September of 2024. It seems like a very long time ago at this point. His message is found on page 12, and I'll just skip over to that for you. So he has a message to the community here on the left, and it includes, key priorities: sustainability, water quality, housing, all of our key priorities at the county. And this report actually also, and I'll just go back by clicking here to the front. This report also this year reflects leadership transitions. So it includes a thank you to Sean O'Brien for his many years of service leading the health department. I believe that he served for about 32 years, if I'm not mistaken. And we welcomed Jay Gardner, our new director of the Department of Health and Environment. I won't walk through every department, but I did want to just mention a couple of highlights very briefly from 2025 that are interesting. The Water Quality Lab becoming Mass DEP certified to test drinking water for PFAS was big. The Dredge program completed 12 dredging projects in 8 towns. Children's Cove received 278 referrals in FY25, which represents a 74% increase, which is alarming, but important to note. AmeriCorps responded to 15 marine mammal strandings, and that equates to helping about 62 animals. Of course, they supported disaster preparedness, conservation, education, and more. And significantly, FY25 was the year that they reached 1 million service hours collectively since 1999. And our fire training division trained 595 students with hands-on instruction at fire stations across the Cape. And that's just a little snippet, a little taste of what the county does. There's so much more. I could go on. And this annual report really lays all of that out. This year, our report expands on our communications efforts as well. And very briefly, our highlights are we continued year-over growth in users on capecod.gov. The exact numbers are here, but it's incredible how much we're growing and getting new visitors to our website. There were 12 newsletters issued from the Commissioner's Office, reaching more than 45,000 contacts each time, and our open and click rates through our email campaign platform remain well above industry standards. So that means that people are opening our emails when we send them, which is great. New this year, the report includes a complete list of our press releases from the Commissioner's Office following meetings. And also for access to this report, it's important to note again that the printed reports were discontinued several years ago. We don't need to print them anymore, but I will, be available to print them per request. But the digital format offers several advantages. So through the online viewer, users can download the full report. They can download, per specific page. They can adjust the viewing options. It's accessible. And it's very important to have accessibility and stay within, requirements. And like I said, I will print this annual report for anyone who requests it. This year, I promote the annual report every year through press releases and a newsletter. I feature it on the website. I share it on social media. And that kind of concludes my presentation, but I would like to just thank, all the department heads and the staff who contributed. They provide content, data, photos. This is a big project every year, and I think it's really important because it really does reflect the collective work that we all do at the county. So I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have questions? Let's see. Delegate Frizzell.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for that. Do you happen to know, is it possible to know how many people have opened this digitally? I mean, how many people actually view the annual report, the clicks on it, so to speak?
Yes, I don't have the statistics offhand now, but I do have access to them. So, the annual report has only been accessible on our website now for a couple of weeks. So in another month's time, I'm certainly happy to get some data for you, some analytics.
Dean Omen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for this report. I noticed it says FY 25. So this report essentially only goes through June 30th of 25, and that's why Mr. Dutton's initiation was included in that. Is that so?
That's true.
How come it took so long to get here? If it was that ended in June.
So our procedure is, so once the fiscal year ends, then the departments start to compile information, and they have a deadline, September 1st, to get all of their documents to me and their photos, and that's when I go to work, and it takes a while to get the report together. This year, let's see, it's a 257-page document. It takes a lot of time. So we have to have it ready and published by November 1st. So that's when we strive to make it available. So it's been available for a few weeks now. So you're just getting this presentation today.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for doing it only online too. I think that's as a member of the Finance Committee, I can imagine how much money we're saving by doing that and making it more accessible and much more quickly accessible as opposed to sitting on somebody's shelf somewhere until they recycle it. So I'm really happy that you're doing it this way. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? And I'd like to say that I've noticed a number of different changes in the way that communications are coming out, and I'd like to applaud your efforts. I think that they're really good, and I think that people are having an easier way of understanding what some of the more complex issues that the county government does face. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hold on. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Sonia, for the overview. By the way, I love the color of your sweater.
Oh, thank you. I matched the beach.
Happy New Year. It looks great on you. But I did have a question, which has been brought to my attention by some of the select board members in my town. There's a lot of information that's coming at all of the people in your that you send information out to.
Press releases, perhaps.
Yeah, or just information. I mean,
Okay.
that's coming from your department. So, I mean, is there any way that you can flag the information that is relevant to the town, so that they're able to say, oh, well, this has to do with my town, so I really should open this one instead of, opening and reading all, 15 communications that come that week. If there's any way to do that, if there's any way to do that, that would be helpful. I just wanted to put that on the table.
Yeah,
Just think
that's certainly a
about it.
good point. I'm happy to do that. I'm sure that would take some, manual doing, but that's fine. I think a lot of things that we put out really are, regional in nature, but occasionally there's something that's very specific to a town. So I'm happy to pay attention to that. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have? Well, thank you very much for the presentation and bringing us up to speed on the last annual report.
My
I
pleasure.
guess now the assembly will convene. Are there any reports of officers and committees? I do have two small things. One, based on the last meeting and the discussion about the home rule petition. Instead of constantly referring to it as an ordinance, let's stop from this day forward, because the problem is it has some similarities to an ordinance, but it doesn't have all. And the petition itself has some similarities to vice versa. So I think where some of the confusion steps in is when we keep referring to it as an ordinance and it doesn't completely follow the rules of all the ordinances. So what we're going to call it now is Home Rule Petition 2026-01. And that will clarify that it's that specifically and not an ordinance. And the reason for that is an ordinance is required to go back to the, has a different passage, and it does go back to the commissioners for feedback, et cetera. A petition does not. There are some other subtle differences like that. So I want to be sure that we don't get lost in the two, in confusing the two of them together. And so I think that will be a good way of doing that. And there will be at least one more public affairs meeting and at least one more public hearing before it is brought to the assembly for a vote. It'll be determined after each of those meetings whether additional ones are required. But I think it's also important to point out that, as with all standing committees, if you're interested in participating in the standing committee, every standing committee has generally allowed for some type of I guess, what do you call it? Amendment when it's reviewed in the committee. And that still holds for this. And every committee, and then when it comes to the full assembly, there's also the opportunity to add different amendments that may not have been addressed as well. They're not mutually exclusive. It just gives opportunity to move the points across so that we can be sure that we've attended to everything that everybody has asked for in a way that is fair to everybody. And I think that will help going forward with the next part of this exercise, which is I would say at this point beginning to wind down. It's not down, but it's a lot of the work has been already done. Delegate Friesel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was hoping you would address this today to get some more clarity on this. So a couple of things. First of all, if I understand you, there's going to be another meeting of the Economic Affairs Committee to consider amendments. And amendments. Well, I have submitted an amendment to the committee. I have not heard back, but I have submitted an amendment. So I assume the process was to submit it to the committee and have the committee weigh that amendment and then make some recommendation. Is that the process?
There.
No, I understand, but they're going to, the point of submitting it was to try to, I thought the last meeting was to try to consolidate amendments and to bring something to the assembly that has at least considered amendments to that point. I know we can all amend on the floor, but it would be easier for the process if at least there's some deliberation in the committee and recommendation by the committee. Is that still the process? I'm just trying to understand.
Wayne, would you like to?
If I may.
I'm sorry. Delegate Sampson.
You're looking at me about the Economic Affairs Committee, and I'm not on that, so I can't. No. Okay. No, I thought you were looking for an answer from me. All right.
Thanks for that clarification. But the second question I have is, under our charter, it says that the assembly acts by resolution or ordinance. So help me here. We're calling this a petition, so it's not falling under either ordinance or resolution. So how is that within the charter somehow?
Deputy Speaker Geffen.
Sure. And this is mostly going off of, if Madam Speaker, if you don't want me addressing that question, within the legislative powers of the Assembly, Delegate Friesel, and I could be wrong, I think it's Article 3 of the Charter, we act as either ordinance or resolution. But within our Article 9 powers, which Council expounded upon in their memo, that's a separate additional method with which we can move forward, which we're calling a home rule petition. There's no specific name given to it, but it is distinct from either of the two methods spelled out in that article that you're referencing. And council essentially said as much in their memorandum on the topic.
So they were acting pursuant to Article 9 of the charter, not Article 3.
Correct.
Yes.
Also, like, if I might clarify for a minute, there's nothing in the charter that suggests that the only way that the assembly can act is by ordinance or resolution. I mean, the charter in other places does refer to other votes of the assembly that pertain to businesses and affairs of the government. There are references to measures. So my read anyway is that the charter doesn't limit you to only acting in those two ways.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I've always had this question right along. Do we have the authority was that answered that we, the assembly, have the authority to file a home rule petition that impacts towns? I'm not sure if that's been relayed clearly. It very well may be, but I haven't seen a clear indication other than what Deputy Gessen said about these two different
Clerk Fletcher?
sections.
But we did, I think we covered this a little bit at the last meeting. We asked for a legal opinion from Mead Tallerman, which is the Assembly Counsel, on this. And also at the time, we were working with Lauren Goldberg, who is, I believe, managing partner at KP Law, which is County Counsel. And so the Assembly does have the ability to ask the legislature to pass a law. And I mean, if you can think about it, the subject to home rule and the Mass Constitution, I mean, the legislature can take you up on that and pass a law that affects the towns or affects the county. It can not act on it if it doesn't want to. You're simply asking them to do that. So we did ask council, and council told us that we had the power to do that. So
Can you send that to me? Thank you.
absolutely.
Second quick thing is fairly shortly, we'll do a standing committee of government affairs to take a look at what position, if any, as a total group, we want to take regarding this charter review. My concern is that people have only gotten half the story, and they're continuing to get half the story. And it's starting sort of in the middle, like, okay, we've called for this review, but nobody realizes that there was a 2.5-month review already in process, that group, unlike others, in each 5-year segment that had been called to look at the charter, had already agreed that they would handle substantive reviews, which was, from my understanding, what one of the biggest criticisms in the past has been. So the fact that committee, which was already about a third into, it's however long it has to do to get that done, was disbanded after the commissioners decided that they were going to call for an elected group. I also don't think, I think there is cost involved with it. I also don't think people understand that that there is no quick way to learn what the county can do. And so if we get 15 new people who have no background in understanding how this county runs, or have only background in how municipalities run, which is very different than how this is structured, we could have more chaos on our hands than would be really healthy and could potentially harm some of the monies that we get from the federal government and the state. I think it's really important in this process to carefully explain both sides. I know that Dean Oman was kind enough to sit in at a League of Women Voters meeting, and all they wanted to know, or not all they wanted to know, but one of the most important questions they wanted to know from him is, well, what are you going to do to support it? That's a rather obscure question, considering the fact that the charter has always required the review process to take place every 5 years. And that's another thing I don't think half the people now that are starting to get on the bandwagon know. And I think the only way you get to a true and compromise is if you show both sides of it and then let people decide based on the true information that they get, but not let the politics weave it all together. So I think it's important that the Standing Committee on Government Affairs get together and kind of just talk about this a little bit, and we'll bring back the thoughts that come from that meeting and see where we go from there. It's always a difficult process when there's two sides, and I don't know that there's two sides, but I have seen little to nothing about why not doing it could be beneficial. But I've seen lots of stuff about, why it should be done, and everybody wants it done. And the reason it was never done is because the Assembly never wanted to do it. And, having, during the 5 years I've been here, that has not been my understanding. And as of the group that started, a very respectable and well-versed group that started the charter review by the Assembly this year, they all agreed to do the substantive stuff. And that was very encouraging. And I thought, okay, so let's see where that goes. And let's see if we can't come to a compromise within that without spending any more money, but that option was not presented. So I just want to say that I feel that we need to have a little bit of dialogue about this and come up with how we think we should do this. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the committee at least kicking this around, but I'm just curious, has anything been said one way or the other on any official government, county government material? Has there been? I haven't seen anything. I'm just wondering if any, like the commissioners, have they put anything in writing which, beyond calling for it, advocates for it? Okay.
Not that I have seen.
Okay, because you're mentioning that they're circulating these statements about it. I just wonder, in what context? Are they just social media? I mean, is it anything in writing that's being circulated? That's
Dean Oman, would you care to speak to that?
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about this. The commissioners put it out. I'm happy to see that Mr. Dutton is still here because he was another one of the panel members with the League of Women Voters, and they're obviously very interested in having this done with no questions asked. But that's the only thing I've heard as an advocate. And Mr. Dutton can correct me if I'm wrong. They put the pressure on all of us to not say, do you approve it or not? They put the pressure on and say, how are you going to approve it and what money you're going to spend? And it was really one organization, the League of Women Voters, that really wanted to do that. And they were essentially in helping defeat question 6 because they wanted there's a lot going on in the background with the League of Women Voters, but I don't know of any other organization whatsoever that has promoted this. I would imagine the county commissioners are going to promote it in some way, and I don't know how that will affect our budget this year, but I'm sure that will come about, and I'll be looking forward to that. But I'm sort of if it ain't broke, don't fix it guy. We were doing it right. It was doing well, and I'd love to see how much 15 new members from 15 different towns will have to spend at about $300 an hour to get any results. And then those results that they want have to go to the legislature, just like the regular commission does, the regular charter commission that we have all the time. I don't think there's an advantage that I can see to an elected charter commission, but that's just my own opinion. Mr. Dutton, thankfully, was very, very articulate in this meeting, and it's online. You can go to the League of Women Voters and see the whole sort of details.
I would like to suspend the rules to allow Administrator
You don't need to.
Dutton to speak to this, but I'm not, I don't want to get into a round robin for this for a variety of reasons, none of which I really have to explain. But I just wanted to make the group aware that these are a couple of things that are coming up soon, and that I felt that it was important to bring it to your attention. Administrator Dutton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really, the only thing I wanted to confirm was that there hasn't been anything emanating from the Commissioner's office about the charter review yet. And to the extent that there will be in the future, I think my goal is to get information out, but we're certainly, I'm not taking a position, no staff is taking a position publicly. And so that it's a political question. As I said earlier, that's the Assembly and the Commissioners. So, but nothing has gone out yet, so.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have new orders of the day? No? New business? No? Any announcements? I have one. It's time to go for a party.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second. Fletcher, Fletcher, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Delegate Frederickson, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Delegate Frizel,
Yes.
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gasson,
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes.
Delegate Harder, Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King, Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson, Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, we are adjourned.